Time to take that ACC schedule, shake it all up, and see what comes out. Let's check out what BC is going to be playing for the next 7 years on today's Locked On BC.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome. This is Locked On Boston College. I am your host, AJ Black, editor and publisher of 247's Eagle Insider. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. On Monday night, the Atlantic Coast Conference, for the second straight year, released a long-term scheduling format for the conference. Now, you don't know who's playing who when for the scheduling, but you know the opponents. And so now Boston College knows who they're going to play from 2024 all the way out to 2030. That's 6 years, and it makes me feel really old. But let's start off by talking about how the scheduling is going to work. Like every other ACC schedule, it's 4 home, 4 away. Nothing changed there. There's now 17 teams in the conference, and you got to also juggle in a few Notre Dame games as well, because remember Notre Dame I think has 4 and ACC games each year. So the first thing that they did was set it up so that teams have some of their rivalry games. Now, there's teams out there that didn't have any rivals on that are protected. You looked at a team like Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech has no protected games. They're going to play different teams every single year. And then the West Coast teams, that would be SMU, Cal, and Stanford. Well, they're going to get to play each other every single year. And that makes sense. It's a little less traveling for them, so especially in California, instead of having to fly across the country to play, Miami or Boston College, right? For BC, they get 2 protected matchups, one more than I expected, and I'll tell you why in a moment. And when you see 2, you pretty much could figure out who those were going to be, and that's Syracuse and Pitt. 2 of the original 3 teams that they had protected under this current scheduling system. Gotta love it. I kind of dig having to play old Big East foes over and over again. It keeps you in the Northeast, with Syracuse in New York and obviously Pittsburgh and Pennsylvania. Against Syracuse, you have a long history. Pitt, you've played 30 plus times. Positive, right? Love the setup there. Then you had, other schools that they had their rivalries. Obviously, team Florida State and Miami is a big one. You have Virginia Tech and Pitt, I believe, have one. You have Duke and UNC, NC State and UNC. You've got all the big ones in there. And I think that this scheduling system did a better job because there were some missing ones under this current system. So that's a positive. They're going to continue to play divisionless football. That's good too. You don't want to go back. I love the way things are now. As a BC fan, when you see #the path and you know that there's a chance that BC could make the Atlantic Coast Conference Championship, I mean, as slim as those odds could be, it's good that they're going to continue on with that because it gives you more hope. Because if this was still the Atlantic and Coastal, BC would be out right now but because anyone can get that second spot, it gives it more options, right? So let's look at 2024. 2024, going into this new change in schedule before SMU, Cal, and Stanford joined, when you asked the fans and you looked at who they were going to play, it looked really, really tough. And right now, the new schedule for BC is going to be, drum roll please, I lost where I had. They're going to have home games against Louisville, UNC, Pitt, and Syracuse. Then they will travel to Florida State, Virginia, Virginia Tech, and then they have their first ever ACC matchup against SMU in Dallas. Now, if you take the schedule, right? This is the new 2024 schedule. Compare it to what people thought was going to be a insanely tough schedule that they had already set. Because remember, they knew what their 2024 schedule was going to be before these other three schools joined. You swapped out SMU and two other schools for Duke, Clemson, and there's a third team on Miami. Sorry, Miami's obviously a protected matchup in that old system. So you took out, three of the more powerful teams if Clemson could figure things out, and replace them with other teams. So it's a little bit more manageable. Then you add in their out of conference schedule for 2024, which is going to be at Missouri, hosting Michigan State, and hosting Western Kentucky. And then they have an open slot, which at this point of the game unless something weird happens, is going to be an FCS school. You're looking at like a Maine, Rhode Island, something like that. They're going to have an FCS opponent. So how does this schedule look for BC fans? You're going to have a home schedule of Louisville, UNC, Pitt, Syracuse, Michigan State, and Western Kentucky, and whatever that F. So you're going to have 7 home games. Good. You avoid Clemson. Good. You don't avoid Florida State. You have to play them in Tallahassee. Not so good. You avoid Miami. Good. So I think the schedule now is no longer like a murderer's row, because remember, Michigan State is a mess right now. They just, with the Mel Tucker stuff, there's a lot going on with that program. Their recruiting class is falling apart. Get a feeling the transfer portal will be pretty heavy for that team. I don't think they're going to be, they're going to obviously be a tough matchup just because they're a Power 5 program, but they're not like world beaters that are going to kick your butt. Missouri's very good. They're a top 20 team right now, and they're playing at a high level and recruiting at a high level. Western Kentucky is not the Western Kentucky that you have seen in years past. The Bailey Zappi, the Zappi teams that were really good and putting up tons of points. It's going to be a Kai Roba show. He's going to have a homecoming against them. Well, they're going to have to come to him, but he's going to play against a lot of his old friends, so that'll be interesting. So I look at this 2024 schedule and I say, this looks pretty manageable. This looks like something that if BC trends in the right direction, remember, they're only losing a few major players next year. Christian Mahogany, obviously, is a big one. Kyle Hergel, you're going to have 2 guards you're going to have to replace. That's a big deal. Elijah Jones, quarterback, he's playing pretty well. He's going to be gone. And I'm sure you're going to have a few other smatterings here, but you're going to have Castellanos. You're going to have Kai Robichaux. You're going to have, some decent wide receivers. I don't know what's going on with Ryan O'Keefe. He's probably played enough that he's going to have a medical waiver to come back because he played 5 games. If he doesn't play again this year, he'd have to have a medical waiver to come back. But you're going to have to get some guys in the transfer portal. And then you look at that schedule and go, okay, that's not a murderer's row that is going to kill you. You could win in that. Now, in a moment, I want to continue talking about the schedule. I want to talk about some of the trends I saw from 2024 to 2030, looking at how that impacts BC and some of the teams that BC's played against. I'll look at what that means and some of the things we're going to see and some of the things we're going to miss. We'll get onto all of that in just a moment. Now, I love going to games and I love going to shows. And if you like that as well, you don't need a frustrating ticket buying experience. You need to use Game Time. It's the fast and easiest way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events for you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seats, and their best price guarantees, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Now, you guys all know me. I'm a Pats fan. Patriots tickets are pretty, they're diving. And the best part with Game Time knows I'm a Patriots person. And they send me flash deals like, hey, the Patriots tickets have dropped 20%. I'm like, oh, I gotta go check it out. The best part with that is you can see your seats, you can see where you're going to sit, And when you see your price, there's no hidden cost. The price that's on your screen is going to be the price that you're paying. There's no absorbent, buyer fees at the end that you get on some of those other sites. It's all right there. So you need to go over to Game Time too and check it out, because I tried it and I love it. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. This is Locked On BC. I am your host, AJ Black. We're talking future schedules here. As we know now, the next 7 seasons for Boston College. And I want to talk, I'm not going to go, it would be a really boring show if I just went through and went, 2026, we play this team. In 2027, we play this team. And no. That's not the point of what I'm doing here. What I wanted to talk about is the frequency of which we play teams. Now, when you go back to the days of the ACC, Atlantic and Coastal conferences, you'd go 7-8 years before you would play a team. It felt like Virginia never played at BC for like 15 years. And the hope with the new scheduling system was it was going to shrink that. I think it was up to once every 3 years. Now, that's about similar to some of the matchups that BC has on this upcoming schedule. However, one of the teams that I looked at, some of the teams I looked at that BC plays infrequently, really surprised me. So there were 4 teams that BC only plays twice in 7 years. That's Wake Forest, UNC, Virginia Tech, and NC State. So UNC totally makes sense. BC really has no history. I feel like UNC and BC have been held in different parts of the ACC for years. You just never played them. The other 3, though, you have a former protected rival in Virginia Tech, obviously part of the Big East with BC, has a ton of history with them. I know Virginia Tech fans don't care about BC. Just surprising that it takes, some of these other teams that you're going to be playing more often, like Georgia Tech 4 times, Virginia Tech 2. I don't know. And then Wake Forest, like if you're going to look at and I'm not going to get into the nitty gritties here. I just think of schools and the profiles of the programs. And when I think of profiles of programs that are sort of similar to BC, Wake Forest is like flashing in my face. Like, this is a school that, small stadium, small alumni base, like similar history, they're a Southern school and they've had some big games against BC. They're playing BC twice. Same thing with NC State. These teams used to play BC every single year. You're not going to see Wake Forest again until 2027. We used to play them every year, and now they don't play them this year. So that's 4 or 5 seasons in a row. The BC won't play Wake Forest. You take it, you include 2020, and it's like their history is gone. That one's a weird one. Now, I look at some of the other teams. I love that they have this protected rivalry against Pitt and Syracuse. They play Stanford 3 times and Cal 3 times. They specifically set up the scheduling system so that both the California teams and the East Coast teams don't have to travel as much. They're trying to make it so that, the Cal teams don't have to spend all their money on all this travel. So I think that was important. I hate that Florida State's on here 4 times and Miami's on there 3. I wish, I'm not a big Miami person, and I would rather see a team that like BC has somewhat of more of a history with, obviously Miami, as their like premier opponent, because Clemson and Florida State playing them 3 times over 7 years, that seems much more reasonable to me. So I look at this. I think the ACC did a good job. What you're going to do here is never going to be an easy thing that's going to please everyone. I'm surprised that the trustees at Florida State haven't come out and condemned this already. They complain about everything. And obviously Clemson, I feel like I just saw that Dabo's busy mouthing off to fans for them to deal with anything that comes out of this. But in the grand scheme of all this, it's great now. How long is this scheduling system going to actually last? Really? Like, as we get closer and closer to the middle to endish era of this media rights deal, the money is going to get more and more enticing for Clemson and Florida State and some other schools to potentially bail. I mean, the rumor right now is that the Seminoles could be out of the ACC as early as next year. So we're excited about this now, but could Florida State even be here in 2 years? We don't know. So for what it's worth, I like it. I like how it sets up for BC. I get excited. I gotta say, I get excited for new fresh matchups. That's something that for a conference that BC doesn't have a ton of like rivalries with, other than maybe Syracuse and some other schools that they've played some good games against. Throwing in Stanford, throwing in Cal and SMU does excite me. I like next year. I'm like pumped to see what SMU is going to look like. I'm pumped to see a trip to Palo Alto to play Stanford. Like, it's gonna be cool. Like, that part I love. I think it's gonna be fun. And I look at what they did, and it works. I think they tried to hit upon a lot of the things that people complained about. And credit to Jim Phillips, I think he did a nice job with his schedule. So I don't know. I'm excited to see what it looks like and how it all plays out and how long it actually stands up. But for now, it's a good thing. Now, in our final segment, I want to get into Jeff Hafley. Jeff Hafley on Monday talked about his team and some of the things going on a short week as they get ready for the upcoming game against Syracuse on Friday. It's a Friday night game. So you need to score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. So that's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. It's so easy to use. And I love the app. I just find the game I want and boom, like everything that you can imagine on that game, whether it's player props, over-unders, spreads, and more. It's all there. College football, basketball, baseball. It's so easy to use. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. Locked On BC, AJ Black. We're wrapping things up here on our show. On tomorrow's show, we're going to start previewing Syracuse. We're getting ready for an early week where we're going to be having a game on Friday night. We're going to want to know more about a Syracuse team that started off hot and has been really ice cold of late. But on Monday, Jeff Hafley had his Monday press conference. And you folks always want to know, like, what did you take out of that? So injury updates, he didn't give much. The thing that he keeps bringing up with Thomas Castellanos is he didn't feel well. You see, if you have listened and you're on Twitter, or on the Eagle Insider message board, you've seen different buzzes about what that could be. I don't know. I don't know what's true, what's not. They guard injuries and illnesses like it's Fort Knox. But he gave the exact same answer that he gave the halftime reporter and his post-game conference. So Jeff's locked in with the same thought about what's going on with Castellanos. But whatever that is, it sounds like he's ready to go against Syracuse and should be 100%. That's a positive. He can do what he needs to do, running, passing. That's great. When I hear injury news, because he also said the usual what we hear every week, which is our guys we're a pretty healthy team right now. Which he says every week, and then we find out like 2 weeks ago that Pat Garwo's was out. Then I saw on Instagram that Jalen Blackwell said his dad, I think it was, said he's out for the season. Then George Takis is hurt. So you hear him say that, and then you find all these mystery illnesses and injuries that you didn't know about. But you read between the lines of some of the things that Hafley brings up. Charlie Gordonier, they asked him about his big catch, and that's great. I thought that was a cool moment. I know the Gordonier family does listen to this podcast. And when a guy plays that long, he's been there for 4 years to have a big catch. And it was a big catch too. In that moment, watch the players go nuts for him. That's cool. That was a cool experience. I'm sure like a memorable moment he won't forget. And that's what college football is all about. But one of the things Hafley said made me kind of think, there might be an injury update right there. Is that he said Gordon Muir needs to continue to be ready because we're going to need him. Now, that was after he said our guys are getting healthier, but he didn't give any updates on George Takis. So that struck to me, again, intuition. I don't know anything. Almost like, okay, Takis isn't playing. We need Gordon Muir to be ready. And that's just kind of the vibe I got off of that. That was one thing that was brought up. He talked about getting ready on a short week and, getting his guys prepared for this game and what that looks like and how different it is. There wasn't a ton from this press conference. He keeps talking about how he's proud of the depth of this team, that guys are ready to come in every time there's an injury because they've built up depth. That's a positive. But all in all, when you hear a Jeff Hafley press conference, you've heard one, you heard them all. Sometimes there's more to it. Sometimes there's less. This one was a lot less. He sounded like he had a cold too. I don't know, but that's my thoughts on that. And just bowl projections. If you're interested in bowl projections, more and more pinstripe bowls versus Rutgers. That's my last thought. Pinstripe bowl versus Rutgers. I hate the pinstripe bowl. I hate the Fenway bowl. I hate Northern bowls basically because we watch AJ Dillon skate against Iowa because of the crap that the crappy conditions on the turf at Yankee Stadium. Fenway isn't going to be much better, except it's in Boston, colder and grosser. If we're getting anything, go south. Go south. I want like the Sun Bowl. I want the Birmingham Bowl again. Whatever it is, I don't want to do the Pinstripe Bowl again. And I don't want to play Rutgers. I don't want to play Rutgers. Play someone else. So that's my thoughts there. Just kind of my brain dump on this last podcast piece. Thank you all so much for listening. We'll be back again tomorrow to get us ready for the game against Syracuse. You're going to want to hear that. Plus, unless more news drops, I will have some basketball previews because I know folks have been asking about that. I will not let you down on that. This is AJ Black. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. Wherever you're listening to this, hit the like button right now. It helps other people find this podcast, and it does a tremendous job of spreading this to new people. You guys are tremendous. Every everydayer out there that listens to this, you're the lifeblood of this podcast. You mean the world to me, and I love that you choose to listen to Locked On Boston College, your team every day. Take care, everyone.